Okay, so yeah, next slide whenever you're ready. I think it's just my intro slide. So I work at Madison College. I'm in the Institutional Research and Effectiveness Department, essentially building reports and dashboards for the college. I've been in BI for 15 years, and 8 of those years I've been working with Cognos. The next slide is Alan is the president of the Illinois user group. He can't make it this morning, or sorry, it is not morning. He can't make it for the intro, but he'll be here later. So there's his information. The next slide is just information about who we are and what we're about. So the purpose of these user groups is to network and promote professional enrichment of the members through shared experiences, insight, and knowledge around IBM analytics software. And it includes all those technologies listed there. We've been meeting probably twice a year. This is my first year as president. So we've had 2 this year. I think they were quarterly and they were in person. Now they're virtual. So that's part of the reason that the Illinois and Wisconsin groups got together, is since we're virtual and we're all using the same technology, we can, kill 2 birds with 1 stone. So next slide is just thanking our sponsors. So IBM and PM Square are the sponsors for this meeting today. They have put a lot of time into preparing the content and delivering the content to you today in the meeting. So thank you very much, IBM and PM Square, for all your hard work. I really appreciate it. And then I think we move on to the first topic. So Sonia, you are up.
All right. So there we go. So welcome everyone. I'm going to take a look today at dashboards and reporting, and we'll discuss how to decide which one you should use at what point. Let me see what I have here. All right, so just an introduction for myself. My name is Sonia Fournier, and I'm a Cognos consultant. I've been working with Cognos for 18 years now, so all the way back to Impromptu and PowerPlay. I also lead our PM Square training practice, so if you're looking for training, it would be me that you would usually work with on this. And I'm an IBM champion for last year, so lots of Cognos experience. I'd love this to be interactive, so if you do have questions, you can throw them into the chat. If you send it out to everyone, then we can all see the questions, and we can. I'll take you through some examples, and we'll demo a little bit as we go. So I'm just gonna make sure I have my clock up. All right. All right, so as of when we made the move from Cognos BI into Cognos Analytics, we ended up with an issue where you suddenly have 2 different tools that are now, move that one. We have 2 different tools that are enterprise ready if somebody asks you to build a dashboard. So we have a tool now called Dashboards, which is, I'll say new, though it's 5 years old now. Dashboards, which is more of an ad hoc business user tool that we can use for building reporting content. And we have the reporting tool, which was Report Studio in the older versions of Cognos. When we get asked to build a dashboard within Cognos or build a interactive report that users can work with, the first question that's going to come up is, which tool should we choose? The new dashboard tool is pretty, it's very interactive, it's easy to work with. It takes away a lot of the complexity of what we've saw when we were working with Report Studio in the past, or reporting. But one of the things you'll find is it is a little bit more limited in the way that we can work with this. So if you ask, a lot of people what they might want to do, which one they would choose. You'll often hear that you should start in dashboards unless you have a known reason why you shouldn't. I don't know if I go that way 100%. I think that the reporting tool does have a lot of um, it has a lot more control that you can put in. You have to know more when you're building within there. But it is a question that we should be starting to ask ourselves once it's time to dive in and start to build. If you worked with dashboards in a previous version, or if you're still in the 11.0 version, the dashboard board tool was pretty light. And I'm not sure that I would have said it was enterprise ready to go. So that has changed. If you're working with the 11.1 version forward, the tool itself is now ready to go for business, but there are still some things you have to ask yourself. So the first thing, and I say ask yourself, it probably is ask your business users or ask the people who are requesting the report that you're looking for. So I put together just a quick kind of set of questions that you might want to think about as you're starting to build your reports. So if you know that the report will be online, that has to be online available, interactive, the user wants to click on different things, see what's going to happen, you could use either tool for that. So that one doesn't rule out one tool or the other. If you're going to have to drill through to source data, the same thing is true. Either tool will allow you to dive deeper into your information and see different bits of information that you might want to look at. The first question that I always ask is, how does a user want to consume this dashboard? So if the answer is, I want to click on things, and then once I find what I'm looking for, I want to send it out to Excel or PDF, that almost always means it's going to be a reporting dashboard. You're going to have to build it in the reporting tool. If you know that the queries you need to build are complex, if you have to do complex filters within your report, that's also going to be the reporting tool. If you need it to be really easy to add to for users, you want to be able to make a presentation out of it, you want to add some forecasting, let the user do drilling up and drilling down through the data, more than likely that's going to be dashboards. So we do have a lot of different things to consider when we're working with the two different tools that we have. So I wanted to start with dashboards because, as I said, it's a newer tool. It's prettier. It's easier to get something that looks good right away. It's designed to be simple. So this tool was built for business users. You don't have to be a deep technical reporting user to be able to use the dashboards tool. If somebody just wants to go in and explore their data, the dashboards tool is really the best way to do that. One of the best advantages of the dashboard tool is it will automatically help you select the right visualization to work with. If you add multiple visualizations to a screen, what you will see is that all the objects automatically interact with each other. It's really easy to do calculations. It's easy for to do, sorry, not customer data groups, but custom data groups that you're working with. And it's easy to add navigation paths or drill up and drill down to your data. There's a couple of great benefits with things like being able to actually see the data in your metadata before you can drag it over. So if you're used to working, if your users know the data really well, but they don't really know how to build reports, then dashboards have a ton of advantages in that case. You can build from multiple sources very easily. So if you need something from your finance area and something from your sales area, you can add both those sources together and you can build a dashboard that would include information from both. You can use the kind of built-in AI functionality, somewhat useful. And then there's some automatic insights that come onto the dashboards. And then one of the other big advantages is we often build these dashboards and then we want to have a way to present them off to users. So Dashboards has a sister tool called Stories. And you can, once you've built your dashboard, you can use the components of the dashboard in a tool called Stories, which can be set up to run for presentations. So we'll take a look at all of these. So I thought we would just jump in and take a look within Cognos at that. If you do have questions, as I said, as we go, like I said, you can put them into the chat. I do believe we will be sharing the presentation after this, but if we will make sure you get a copy of that as we go. All right, so I wanted to take a look at coming in to build a dashboard as a business user might. We're not always having our business users build dashboards, but it is certainly possible with the dashboard tool to let somebody go in. If you have a good self-service model set up and ready to go, let your users come in and create their own dashboard. So I wanted to just very quickly look at some of the functionality that makes a powerful argument for using the dashboard tool as your starting point. So one of the nice things with the dashboard tool is if you know what you're looking for. So let's say I'm a business user and I know that I'm looking for hospital admissions and I'm looking for how many hospital admissions I have. If I grab, let's say, the count and I drag that over to my display, I can drop the measure over into the display and it automatically gives me a nicely summarized version of my data that I can look at. Now, what's really nice with this is it has a ton of formatting options you can throw on here. And probably my favorite one is the ability to abbreviate. So if you're putting together measures that you're putting onto a dashboard and they're going to change from let's say thousands into millions as you're navigating through your dashboard or the other way around, it will automatically do that for you. So you don't have to look at a big long number and put it onto the display. So that's really one really nice, easy option. You can do this in reporting, but it's going to take a bit of either conditional formatting or conditional displays as you're working. So let's say I know in this case that I want to have, let's say, the year, the count, and the quarter brought over into my display, and I'm going to drag that one into the middle option here. This is another real benefit. I don't have to think a lot about what display type I pick when I'm building. When I'm dragging over the data into my report, the dashboard tool will help me decide what visualization to use. I don't have to go with what they suggest, and I don't have to, if things are in a different display option, you can. Let me just see if I can put those together. So if I have my kind of years broken out by my different quarters, I can do that on my display. If I want to take my cities, and I'm going to put those in as the colors. You can start to see the display of data that shows up. So you can very quickly get what I would call a working dashboard put together. One of the other real benefits of the dashboard, as I said, is the ability to have it all interact with each other. So just with this very quick example, you'll see the 98,000 that I have for the admissions count. If I want to know how many of those were in the age range of 15 to 19, I can simply click on one of these objects. Now, totally possible within the reporting tool, but that takes a little bit more work. So I have to set it up with parameters. I have to put in prompting controls of some kind, and I have to build that interaction in myself. So that's one of the really neat things you can do with your dashboard tool. So let's say that I'm, let me move out of here from the building stage and let me be a manager in this case. So this is the dashboard that was put together. I'm the manager of the Miami and the Hollywood hospitals and I would like to see my group of data put together. So as a user of this dashboard, I have the ability to, let's say, control click on, let's say, Hollywood, and control click on Miami. If I can make those both be selected here. So I've got the two hospitals that I'm responsible for, the two cities I'm responsible for. And then I have the ability, I don't think I have that selected, to come in and create a custom group from those two. So 1 second, let me just make sure I have both of those selected. I don't think they're selected. All right, so let's say those three are my custom group. I can hit the custom data group option as a user, and I can say my hospitals or my cities, whatever that might be. And that's going to create a group that's going to show up as kind of one object on my report. So you'll now see those are the three things that I'm responsible for. If I click on that, you'll see the you'll be able to see that the count is now my own particular information when I'm looking at this. So these are the different things you can do with this dashboard tool. It's simple to work with. The end user doesn't have to know a lot about the data to do it. It does require that you have a good self-service model because you can't do complex things like very complex filters, complex query joins. You can now kind of see the queries and some of the other stuff that go in with the later versions of the software. But it does give you the ability to create very quickly a dashboard that you might want to work with. Where your disadvantages come in here is that it's online only. So if your user is coming in and needs to be able to interact with the dashboard, but they don't have a Cognos sign-on, it's a little bit more limited. It's much harder to give access to this without being a Cognos user. You can't schedule this report. You can't really export it out to, you can export it out. You can export out the kind of data that's inside of one of these graphs, and you can also export it out kind of in a PDF flat file type option, but you can't set it up to burst. You can't set up to do like a scheduled report that might go out. So it's a little bit more limited that way. The other challenge is the dashboard tool is really pretty. It's very easy to build something that's nice and interactive and easy to work with. One of its biggest challenges is if you have to have it, we call that pixel perfect kind of reporting. If you have a very specific design that you're trying to meet, it's often very challenging to get it to do. It's much better than it has been in previous versions. So once you hit 11.1, 6, and 7, you're starting to see that you're getting closer to what we could create with reporting in the past. But you are still a little bit more limited. So I always kind of joke that as long as you like the way it's going to do things for you, it's great. The more you have to kind of force it to look like something else, that's where it starts to get a bit challenging with dashboards. So realistically, if the way that you're outputting it and having the ability to put it out to an output for users, that's really when you'd have to look at reporting. But if you just need something to very quickly show data, you're not super fixated on the way that it's designed, there's a lot of options within here. Okay, so I'm just going to look at the questions for one quick second. So it looks like some of those are being answered. Is it possible to have a scrolling page dashboard versus the single page with multiple tabs? Within the dashboard tool, you can change the design around a little bit. If the scrolling page, I believe when you're in, you can create, 1 second, let me create a new one quickly. I keep changing the way that the design works. You can create something called an infographic, which would give you a much kind of more scrollable style of a dashboard. So yes, there's the kind of tabbed view where you are kind of looking at just a kind of a landscape view of your data, or you can take a look at the infographic. That would be a longer option there. So does that answer? Does anybody have any questions before I jump into reporting? But all right, you can stick them in the chat or ask, feel free to jump in as we go through. All right. So let's say that you can't do it with dashboards and you've worked your way through the dashboard. Maybe let's say you decided to try to start there, but then somebody says, oh, I really do need to have this bursting out to my users, or I have to export it out as both PDF and Excel. So with reporting, this is the way that you can really get in and start to take a look at a much more complex dashboard that you might need to create. So this is an enterprise reporting tool. This is really when someone says, can you do X? With reporting, usually the answer, it may take a little bit of work, but usually you can find a way within the reporting tool to really design anything you would need within here. Within the reporting tool, you can create complex queries, you can join your data, you can have complex filters, complex calculations. You can have a starting prompting page where you can preset what you're looking for, or you could actually embed your prompts directly into reports. Reports can be built from multiple sources of data. I have an asterisk next to this one because this one really depends on what version you're working with. So you could always combine different data sources together into one data module. As of 11.1.7 and maybe even the FixPack that just released, you can now use multiple data sources, multiple data modules within one report. You still can't blend them into one reporting object, but you can pull them together. Let me just take a quick. Okay, I'll have to get back to you on the resolution one. There is options in there to modify it, but I haven't checked to see what's in there, but I'll come back to you on that one. The custom group example you showed, is that saved to the dashboard? That's an it depends answer. So if you're creating the custom group within the actual dashboard and then you save that dashboard, it would remain. If you're creating it in the output, you can save it. You could save it off to your own version. So it's going to depend on your permissions within that dashboard. So as a user of the dashboard, I can add that custom grouping, or I could, as a developer of the dashboard, create the custom grouping within the dashboard, and then everyone would have access to it. So kind of a both is the answer to that one. One of the options they've added to dashboards in the last little bit here, let me think where my good dashboard is once you've gone in and let's say I was interested in cardiology and whatever the second one, physical medicine and rehabilitation. So let's say I made my custom group of these two options here. And I gave it a name like I would normally do and all that. If I'm working at this as I said, as the end user, up in the top corner up here, there is a reset of your dashboard. So I can fool around with it. I can pick what I like. I can filter and all that stuff. And if I'm not somebody who has write access to the database, I can't save over top of it. And I want to just go back to what it looked like before, there's now a reset dashboard button. And then all those filters that I applied, everything I clicked on goes away and I'm back to my starting point. So that's a really nice new feature that they've added in here. So there's some really, like I said, the dashboard tool really is, it's nice looking. It has lots of great options within here. When else would you have to go back to reporting? So your reporting, when you create a reporting, dashboard, so it's something you've created in what used to be Report Studio in the reporting tool, you do have all the abilities of a regular reporting report. So you can export to Excel, PDF. You can also, depending on the way you've created it, you do have the ability for it to be interactive. So if I just I have a quick report here. This one is a report. So this is a report that was built in the reporting tool, what used to be a report studio tool option here. So depending on the way that I've set this up, if Maura is my sales rep and I want to really focus in on her, I can take this interactive dashboard that I've created and I can use the pop-up toolbar that would show up here, and I could go up and include Maura into my display. So lots of ways that I can interact with this this option. I can still have multiple tabs, just like I did in the dashboards tool. All of this takes a lot more time to format and make it pretty and polished. But it can still be, you can notice I can blend in prompt controls that would be here. I can, like I said, I can work with this data. I can choose, as I said, to put in things like summary counts or different options like that. So this can still be a very interactive tool, but where this real benefit comes in when it's reporting is that if I do want to send this off to a PDF, I can click a button, it can go off to the PDF. So you always kind of have to keep these two things in mind. The new functionality is, like I said, it's simple to use, it's pretty, it has a lot of great options, but it also is, it is a little bit more limited when you want to do things like export it off. Let me just pull this up as well. I know we have some questions and I want to leave a little bit of time for that. The other kind of more advanced advantages we would have here with bursting, you can, let's say we need to distribute a separate PDF to each manager of my call center, and I want to be able to send each one their own customized version, but I don't want to have 10 versions of a report or even report views of it. I just want to have one version of it. So with I can use bursting to take care of that within Cognos, within the reporting tool. If you do have a real custom need, and I notice Paul's chiming in on a couple of things in the chat, which is awesome. If you do need to have something that is out of the box for Cognos, there's the ability to add something like JavaScript or control to the report so that you can kind of change the way that the standard Cognos report works. So within the samples of Cognos, there are a couple of different settings. So in general, if you've ever worked with prompting controls, let's say within the standard Cognos reports, you'll know that with auto submit, you could only select one object at a time and have it show up. So within, if you want to blend in some custom controls, use some JavaScript here, you can start to make a little bit more of an advanced option here. So I can pick Canada and I can pick the United States without having to reprompt, pop up those new options that we would have here. And then I can pick my values before I hit update of my report. So that's something you couldn't do necessarily in it. Not that you couldn't, you can't change a whole lot of what the dashboard does, but you do, like the reporting tool does give you a lot more flexibility with what you're working on inside here. So again, lots of kind of, all of the old reporting things we've done before can be added to these dashboards. Yeah, you can modify your pagination, you can work with images, it can do some of that with dashboards. So, there's a lot you can do with the reporting tool, pretty much everything you can do with the reporting tool. What are your disadvantages? Why not just go straight to your reporting tool? The tool is complex for business users. So if you're building something that other people will have to kind of modify going forward, the dashboard's a lot easier. It's much, much easier to have a business user go and add content to your dashboard. The developer, if you're building a complex dashboard within the reporting tool, the developer has to go in and provide that interactivity between your objects. We didn't look at this one quickly, but in the dashboards, there's the ability now to do forecasting. So if you have, some time sensitive or time data on your axis, you can forecast forward. I can show you an example of that one if we have time at the end. Can't do that really in dashboards yet. This is depending on the version of your software where you lie. You can't use multiple data modules within your report. As I said, that really just came into play in 11.1.7 FixPack 1 that just came out. And then the other issue with the reporting is that not all visualizations, depending on what you've selected, are exportable. So you kind of have to be a little bit careful on what you choose if you know your primary plan for these dashboards is to export whatever content it is you're going to work at. So that's kind of the really, as I said, super speedy view through there. So I guess this is kind of my checklist I go through. So if somebody has asked me to build a report that could be built in either dashboards or reporting, this is kind of the first pass checklist I go through to figure out where I'm going to do it. And like I said, the primary one that is kind of the most important is if their expectation is the output will be some type of PDF or Excel formatting, then probably your best option is going to be reporting. You'll have more control over that. If it's super complex, I think you could have put check marks in both of these. You just have to have control over the data module or the data source that's being used to create it if you do need more complex query objects. And again, just as soon as you get into some really custom, I need it to do super funky things that Paul has shown me how to do, more than likely it's probably going to be in reporting. So just things to keep in mind as you're working through here. And really is if it has to be easy for the users and they're going to be adding to it, then probably dashboards are where you're going to focus. So that's my, like I said, super fast, that's the decision tree I work through when I'm going through with these. Questions on anything or anything at all within dashboards or reporting? You can feel free to unmute if you want to talk to the whole group too, whatever works. All right, so we'll keep up. No master detail. It's my favorite part of reporting. Excellent.
Hey, Sonia.
Yeah, go ahead, Ryan.
Hey, so just a general question, and I apologize if you already addressed this. I had to step away for a second, but what, with the customers you're working with, what do you see them, like, how do you see them making these decisions today? And do you see dashboards taking up more of the development time or receiving more focus over time?
So for my customers in general, especially the last few customers, I would think that would be working that are coming in either as legacy customers or as brand new customers. It depends, I think. So one of my last big customers was really, they were so focused on getting their original content into the tool that I don't think we talked about dashboards at all. They were really straight reports from there. Now, their plan down the road was to start to look at creating self-service models and making sure that they could really get more deeply into the self-serve type of stuff like that. But that really required a better data model than what they had set up at the time. My current customer is really looking primarily at dashboards. So I think it depends. I feel like it's a little harder to take somebody with a history of always having the ability to Excel or PDF a report and move them into dashboards. It's the challenge is that they're so fixated on having the ability to print it out that I think they're missing some of the functionality that is really awesome within dashboards. So I wish I had a better answer, but I feel like we're still not fully at the point where people are deeply building dashboards at this point. Is that what you're finding? Or you see
Yeah.
the other side of it?
Yeah, I mean, it's a lot of, it's a big mix, the customers I talk to, but I do find that the customers who have recently purchased Cognos, where
Yeah.
the only Cognos they've ever had is Cognos 11,
Yep.
they dive into dashboards and data modules right away because
Right.
it's the easiest thing to get into.
Yeah.
Whereas my customers who have had Cognos for 15 years,
Yep.
a lot of them are very leery of jumping in because when they look at dashboards and data modules, what they see is the list of things it can't do.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's true. And I mean, I really think too, it depends on to be truly successful in dashboards. I really think you need to have a good model that isn't everything you could possibly report on in your business. I think it has to be really focused. And I don't know that that's not the way we've been designing legacy customers. So I think, like you said, new customers, we're just starting small sections at a time, and that becomes a little bit easier to move them right into dashboards, and they love it, especially the ability to just don't have to be a deep developer to get that stuff. Yeah, so that's been my experience. I try to make myself not be an old school Cognos developer and think in dashboards, but I feel like it depends on who the user is coming in and what they're used to from there. So good
Hi,
question.
Sonia.
Yeah.
Hi, this is Akshay here. I have one question.
Sure.
So I've been working with Cognos for like last 11 years now. So with this new release of 11, so there is always this issue that we kind of come into kind of it's difficult to decide on some of the things that we want to use dashboard for its new features and all these things, but at the same time we need to have more control on that. So do you think IBM is doing anything on that part where they can control, like say for example in earlier versions 10.2.2, so we had workspace where we could design our reports with whatever the at most details that we wanted, and then we were able to kind of use that and as a dashboard and have all that interactivity and everything in there. But with this new dashboard, I understand the purpose is to abstract the reporting kind of details from the front user, because it's easy to kind of build, but then that's always kind of a issue that you can't do much with the dashboard. So have you also been had any such issues where you want to use dashboard but you cannot, but at the same time you think reporting is too much kind of a old or conventional way to use for a certain specific product?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the big challenge. So, I mean, the one thing I will say is that every single point release of Cognos in the last, 3 years has had pretty significant improvements to dashboards. It's the thing that changes the most from point release to point release. So I think it's getting much, much closer to enterprise reporting. So I do think that I think you'll start to see a migration over to it, even by users who are, frustrated by the things that it can't do. So I think we're starting to see a move there. It's like I said, every release has gotten better and better. And if as soon as you hit they become a lot closer than they were before. So I do think that we'll start to see a bigger move towards it. Will it ever be reporting, or should it ever be reporting? I don't know. That's going to be the option. Like, do we want two different tools? I mean, I know what you're I miss Workspace. I liked the option where you could actually take, complex reporting objects that you created in reporting, a report studio, and throw them into to Workspace and have them interact. Like that was a really nice feature that would still be nice if you could do more of that in the dashboard tool as well, or at a similar tool. I don't know if it has to be the same one. So yeah, I think there's challenges with having two tools, and being able to do the stuff you need to do with both is definitely an issue. So yeah, I agreed on that one. Any other questions or any other thoughts?
Tanya, I was just gonna say, I think, yep,
Stealing from
let's
Ryan's time now.
Yep, that's okay. So if there's any future questions for Sonia, just throw it out in the group chat and someone, Sonia or others, will answer. Thank you so much for taking the time to present on this.
No problem.
It's good food for thought and trying to figure out exactly, when to use what.
Absolutely. All right, I'm going to pass it back over to Ryan then.
All right, sounds good. Thank you.
No problem.
Okay, let me see. I should have the ability to share screen here. So, yeah, thank you, Sonia, for that that presentation. Really nice job. I know it's something that I talk about with my customers all the time. Is just what should I use when should I use dashboards? They don't feel like it's always 100% clear from IBM. So I think that was super helpful. All right, so my name's Ryan Dolly. I'm the Director of Technology at PM Square. Looking at the list of people here, I know a lot of you. So it's nice to see you again. For the people who I haven't met before, hello. What I'm going to walk through today, excuse me, what I'm going to walk through today is really a couple things. So what initially we were just going to show, we have a framework manager to data module conversion utility that will take an FM model and convert it to a data module. And I'm going to show a little bit of that. But we discovered this morning that we did a Node.js version update that broke part of it. So it's not 100% functioning. So I'm going to give you a quick run through of like how it works and talk about it theoretically. But the actual conversion part is not going to work because of this Node.js update. But what I will do instead with the time is to show you some of the other things that we have in the PM Square Labs to make your Cognos life easier, including a pretty exciting tool that we're going to be launching next Thursday that really comes out of the mind of Cognos Paul Mendelson. So as I'm going through this, I'm watching the chat and ask questions, any questions you have as we go, and we will take it from there. And I see Paul says hi in the chat there. So I mean, Paul will be able to answer a lot of the questions that you may have because frankly, Paul designed some of the stuff or a lot of the stuff we're going to be looking at today. So with that said, though, please do keep, if you have a question, ask it in the chat or feel free to pop on, unmute yourself and just ask over audio. That works as well. So without further ado, let me open I'm going to apologize. Actually, let me switch my screen because this text is way too small. That should be a little better. Okay. You should be able to see my screen here. So I'm going to do a brief walkthrough of how this works. The thing to understand about this conversion utility, and again, I apologize, like this is really like, hey, it was working yesterday sort of thing. But the way that this functions, and let me pop open our trusty framework manager model here. And let me just confirm, Sonia or somebody, you can see my screen, right? It says it's sharing, but yeah, okay. So let me pop open our trusty Go Sales just for point of an example to talk through kind of how this conversion utility functions. What it really does is it gives you the ability to convert an entire model or individual packages that exist within a model from Framework Manager into data modules. And the way it does this is it's actually able to, like if you expand this and you look at, say, these namespaces in here. So like the ye old trusty sales query, right? All of these, of course, are shortcut links in Framework Manager that point to tables that exist in the business view, that point to tables that exist in the database view. And as you guys know, if you've spent really any time in data modules, there is no layered structure to the model that exists in data modules. It is a single layer that contains your database view and your business view and your presentation view kind of all in one. And this has a lot of advantages, some disadvantages. That the kind of robustness of the three-tiered structure in Framework Manager is really nice, and losing that is a downside. But the upside in data modules is, of course, you can just build them a lot faster. When I go into my clients nowadays, I start from the point of view that we're going to be using data modules if we're doing new development. We might enhance your existing Framework Manager model if you have one, but if you don't, we're going to use data modules until we determine that we can't, is really the approach that I take on it. Now, one question I get a lot whenever I'm talking about this is, well, is there our data module is going to go away, or rather is Framework Manager going to go away at some point? And the answer is, yeah, at some point, right? I mean, everything ends eventually, but there's no time horizon for that. I ask IBM about it about every 6 months. Hey, have you guys changed your mind about Framework Manager or anything like that? And it's always, no, we're going to support it pretty much indefinitely. So don't fret. But with that said, what we're able to do here is we actually are able to kind of look at the package and say, okay, what exists in the package? So in this case, it would come in here and say I've got this package that is only the sales query. It can look at these links and say, okay, what do these shortcut links point to? And then it would go into the business view and look at the tables and see that the business view tables reference the database view. So we'll go to the database view and look at where does the table come from. If the table is built out of custom SQL, it can pull the custom SQL. If the business view table is a composite table or a view that is actually made up of items from 10 tables that are joined together in the database view, it can figure that out. It can detect all the relationships. It detects the calculations. It detects filters that you've put in there, both table filters and filter objects, folders, the whole deal. It detects all of that and is able to collapse that all down into a single layer and then create a data module out of that layer. So for example, if you have a really gnarly database view, which most of my customers do, most of the models I've built can have a gnarly database view, where at the very least in the database view, you know, you're going to have database naming conventions where things have, you know, it's all caps. There's no spaces, there's underscores instead, and that sort of thing. What we can do is we take the naming of your data items or query items from the business view, but the logic that maybe exists in the database view, and we mash them together. So we're really able to take a Framework Manager model and data modulify it and put it into the appropriate format for a data module. Let me just make sure I can actually see the chat here, because I just realized that I cannot. Where is the chat? It's not showing up on my screen. Okay, well, I'll take a look at it in a second. Now, how do we do that? This is an application that we built. It is it's a Node.js application. It's very developer-y, so it doesn't have a slick front end. It doesn't have that sort of thing. It's not only is it not at that point, we're not sure we're ever going to bring it to that point. We'll see. But essentially, the way it works is there's a couple of control files that you interact with. So here's one that you can see, and I'll zoom in so you can kind of see what this looks like. But you can see on this control file, you tell it, okay, the input data source type is Framework Manager. The output data source type is a data module. And then you provide to it a path to the model XML that you want to convert, the store ID of the data module that you want to convert it to. So you do, in this version, have to have an existing data module. It can just be blank, but you do have to have a data module that exists, and you provide it the store ID. And then you tell it which packages you want to convert. And this can handle more than one at a time. So you could say, you could have 10 models that are going to output to 10 Framework Manager models that are going to output to 20 data modules and do a mapping of 20 packages to those 20 data modules, for example. And it can handle that. And then, the way this is actually executed is, and you can see here, this is why I can't show you the actual conversion, because we have this friendly error. But as you can see, it's executed from PowerShell. So the way that we do this with our customers, and if you're interested in trying this out, let me know, and we can do kind of a test conversion of one of your models and see how it would work for you. But the way we do this is generally as like an engagement. So this isn't something right now that is like a product that you would buy from us from a certain amount of money. It's, if you're interested in doing this, reach out to me. We'll do a test conversion of a package of yours to see how it works. And then from there, if you wanted to convert all your models, it would be, we figure out how much time that's going to take, and it would just be kind of a small consulting engagement is the way we're approaching this right now. At some point in the future, if we make it friendlier, we give it a UI, that sort of stuff, it may become just a product that we make available for download. But for the time being, it's a, what do you call it? A software-driven services or something like that is the way that we're approaching that. So I apologize that normally I would, it's like a magic trick, right? I pull a rabbit out of the hat where I walk you through a model, and then we do a drum roll, and then I open the data module and you see it, and I walk you through what it did. But we're not able to do that today. Blame Node for that. So let me just stop sharing my screen for a second, and I will eyeball the chat to see what questions you have, and then we'll take a look at some other things. So Sridhar asks, why not simply expose a DQM package in a data module and call it done? Is there any advantage to converting FM to data module? What are the advantages and disadvantages of either? Well, I haven't entirely, so they have changed how packages are exposed in data modules. There was a time when it was really not good at all, and it has gotten better. In order to take full advantage of the data module functionality on a package, what you do is you use a package data source in a data module, and then you basically have to create a view table, like use the data module custom table functionality to point to a table in the Framework Manager model in order to have access, I believe. And Sridhar, you can tell me if something has changed and I'm wrong. But definitely last time I checked, in order to have access to all the data module features, you couldn't do everything on a Framework Manager table that came out of an FM data source in data modules. So that's kind of the reason to do the reason to do that. John Sanish, hi John, nice to see you here, asks, anyone with inside contacts with the IBM product team, are there any plans for IBM to containerize tools within Cognos platform? Yes. Yes, there are. So that is done. That's already done. If you're interested in a containerized deployment of Cognos, the way you do that is through a product called Cloud Pak for Data. So that is, Cloud Pak for Data is basically a Red Hat what's the best way to describe it? It's a Cloud Pak for Data is built on Red Hat. So it's one of the big things that came out of the Red Hat acquisition. And what it does is it's a containerized data science, business intelligence, and data warehousing suite of tools that can include Cognos. So if you get Cloud Pak for Data, it's fully containerized, and it includes not just Cognos, but it also includes a lot of kind of data stage functionality and Watson Studio functionality, SPSS functionality. It's got data virtualization. It's got Watson Knowledge Catalog. It's really a big platform that lets you do everything related to data science, business intelligence, data cataloging. It's the whole shebang all in one. And Cognos runs on that. So that is your option for containerized Cognos today. I can tell you, as far as the development goes, what they've done is they're breaking, it's not entirely containerized, but they're heading down that path. So as they continue to advance, you'll see deeper and deeper containerization of Cognos. It can all run on containers, microservices architecture today on the Cloud Pak platform, but it's not as containerized as maybe what you're thinking of, John, where you're like, hey, dashboards are their own container. Reporting is its own container, right? But it is like the query service is its own container, and it can spin up and it can create and destroy query service processes as necessary based on load, right? It takes advantage of the whole containerization thing. So John, reach out to us if you're interested in that. We do have a pretty good understanding of the Cloud Pak and that sort of thing. Now, just the general containerized deployment, like I want to run on Amazon, whatever they call their container services. I can't remember what it is. There isn't anything like that right now. Maybe in the works, may not. If you want it, put pressure on IBM to build it for more than just their platform is what I would tell you.
Hey, Ryan.
Yeah.
Hey, Ryan, this is Jason Bennett from IBM. Maybe I can fill in that a bit.
Yeah.
Cognos is containerized on Cloud Pak. It's also containerized on IBM Cloud when customers have a deployment of Cognos Analytics on IBM Cloud. And the bits and pieces of Cognos are not broken into microservices yet, but what we have done is we've containerized the concept of a dispatcher. And depending on the deployment of Cognos on Cloud or CP Cloud Pak for Data that you have, that's the containerized part. And what we do desire over time to do is break those pieces up. As we went from version 10 to 11.0 to 11.1, there have been a bit of how we've looked at the various services that are now running in 11.1, and there's just more there, but they're still running in really the context of a traditional dispatcher. They're not microservices yet, but stay tuned, because that's really where we want to go. We want those things to be able to run anywhere. We want those things to be self-healing. We want the scale to be available as clients need it for clients who have subscriptions. We want really all the things that you know and love. And as we released Cloud Pak for Data, Cloud Pak for Data can run on any cloud, IBM Cloud, Azure. It can run on AWS. When you run Cloud Pak for Data on AWS, it's really a local provision. Cloud Pak runs on Amazon or Google Cloud or Azure, and that's that. It's really as simple as that. So thanks for letting me give a quick pitch about that.
Yeah, thanks, Jason. And it is, I mean, I will tell you, it's a really cool platform and very powerful. So if you're kind of, I think it's especially good for organizations that are looking to buy the complete package of you know, I mean, like Jupyter notebooks and data virtualization and data warehousing and data science and machine learning and AI. And they want all of that in a complete package that's already configured to work together, that's all supported by one vendor who can be the person you go to for help, rather than, well, we got our data warehouse from this vendor, and we're using this open source tool and that open source tool, and ETL from this other vendor and BI from this other vendor, right? Cloud Pak is all of that together in a containerized deployment. It's very cool.
I'd also note that for clients who are considering or at least want to learn more about Cloud Pak, it's comprehensive from an analysis standpoint. Ryan, as you said, it contains all of the stuff, but clients aren't required to get all of the stuff all up front. It's got the pieces that can be added over time based on what makes sense for you.
Cool. Thanks, Jason. Okay. So I have about 12 minutes left. I'll give you a little, I'll give you guys a peek at other stuff that we have going on here at PM Square. So let me just share my screen here. And you should be able to see my, of course, it's not making it super easy to make sure I'm sharing the right screen. I'm assuming you guys can see Cognos. In any case, so things to share. I'll give you a quick rundown of what we have going on. Something that's available now, something that's coming soon, and something that's coming a little bit in the future. And I'll do it really quick. So what's available now, so many of you may have seen this at some point, but let me just hop in for anybody who is unfamiliar with our Thrive do I remember my own password? That's an important question. Why is it not letting me in? My name is Ryan Dolly, right? Is caps lock on? Nope. I'll try one more time. Very strange. Okay. Well, that's highly unusual that I couldn't get into that. Let me try this one. So our Thrive product is kind of your one-stop shop for understanding what's going on in Cognos. And it's really kind of what it does is it takes data out of the audit database and the content store database and exposes it in a way that makes it really easy for you to figure out what's happening in Cognos, understand if you're having problems, and proactively address them is what it's all about. It's got features that I know, features that a lot of quality of life stuff, like it will alert you if a schedule or a job fails. I know that's something people have wanted out of Cognos forever, and it will do it. It'll send you an email saying, hey, this job failed. It helps you understand your licensing. It does things like it maps the relationship between reports and report views and rolls all report view executions up under their parent report. I know I have a lot of customers who use report views very heavily, where it takes and you look at the usage, and if you've got 100 report views built off of one report, the audit database counts each of those as a separate report. Whereas in Thrive, we're able to roll all those up under one object. You can still see which executions belong to which report view, but we house all of that under the parent report, for example. So it's a really cool tool. I would encourage you to go to pmsquare.com/Thrive or go to our YouTube channel to check it out. And I'm going to email the dev team to ask them what the heck is going on with our authentication. So things that I wanted to show you. First is something that's coming in Q1 to keep your eyes out for. And that is we are working on a new release of Thrive that is going to include the most important thing to understand is that the new release of Thrive is going to be a single pane of glass where you can see usage and kind of audit database and content store database style info from multiple BI tools in one place. So for those of you who are managing Cognos and Power BI, which is a lot of my customers at this point, Thrive is going to allow you to come in here and see who's doing what and across multiple BI tools. You can see I have filters here for Cognos, Power BI, and Tableau. For example. So you could come in here and see, hey, who uses all my BI tools, and then just click the Cognos button to filter it down to just people using Cognos, for example. We have a lot of different pieces of information in here. You can dig really deep into what a single person is doing. Like here's Craig, one of my coworkers. This is our internal PM Square environment. Here's all the stuff Craig is up to. The average execution time of a report that Craig runs is what, 4,000 seconds. So Craig is running some reports that take a really long time. Here I can see every single thing Craig did. He logged on, he logged off, he created content. This is coming in Q1 of 2021. So do be on the lookout for that. And then coming next Thursday, I'm just going to tease this. So because we're doing a live stream next Thursday at 1 p.m. Eastern with myself and Cognos Paul Mendelson, where we will be on together showing the Cognos Paul Cogbox. And what the Cogbox is, and again, I'm not going to go through it all. I'm just going to show a little bit of it because I don't want to ruin the surprise. But what the Cogbox does, for example, is it gives you a series of really powerful tools to help you manage your Cognos environment and make it easier for you as a developer to build cool stuff in Cognos or maintain the stuff that you've built. So for example, if I were to just grab a data module, say, let's grab the Go Sales data module. You notice when I go into data modules, I get this icon here. It says PM Tools. It should say Cogbox. It will say Cogbox by next Thursday. But you can see, for example, this query, these queries are in a particular order, the items in the queries, right? So you can click on PM Tools and choose a reorder query. And you see branches is in this order. Say I want it in descending order. You click ascending, or in ascending order rather. And you can see here, it's now in ascending order. You want it in descending order. Now it's in descending order. Magic will order it basically identifiers, attributes, and measures. So this is one area I know very painful in data modules to manually have to order this stuff all the time. The Cogbox is here to make that easy for you. Other things that are challenging in data modules, just understanding what's in a data module. So here you can see a list of all the items, tables, and items in this data module. Is it an ident, like, what is it? What is the expression? What's the usage of it? How is it aggregated? What data type is it? Is it a part of a nav path? And you can search in here. So I want anything that contains the word city. For example, you can see here I have 2 items that have cities. Now in a future release, we're going to give you the ability to make changes from here, so you can search and kind of do a find replace even from this window. But that is the type of thing that we're doing in the Cogbox to make your life easier as a Cognos developer. There's a lot of great stuff, and I don't want to spoil the fun because most of the great stuff is in reporting. But if I go to open a new report, you're going to see in here, here's the Cogbox icon, and we give you the ability to edit, copy from the clipboard and edit the report spec directly in here rather than having to dump it to Notepad++ or something like that. The ability to edit parameters, a really good custom control manager. You can create a table that automatically contains all the params in the report for you. The ability to toggle the copy, in report output, you don't have the ability to copy a lot of times things. We make it so that you can copy. So a lot of really awesome stuff coming. That's next Thursday that live stream is, again, 1 p.m. Eastern. And the price of the Cogbox is free. So make sure you attend the live stream when we're going to do the full public unveiling. We're going to walk you through everything that it can do, and then go out and and download it. It's just a Cognos extension, so it's not a big piece of software you have to install. It's an extension that you add to Cognos like any other extension, and it will give you this type of functionality. So go to youtube.com/PM Square. You'll see that we have this video up, and I'm going to actually paste this in the chat. This set reminder button will have your phone ding when we go live on Thursday. You're not going to want to miss it. So with that, I'm going to stop sharing my screen, and I'm going to take an eyeball at chat here and see if there are any questions that I have. So people saying, when is live stream? Thursday. Yep, Thursday at 1 p.m. Eastern. Be very helpful to display the description beneath the report name. Okay, that's good. Lisa, I saw your question about help Cognos packages to be used in Power BI. Let's have a conversation about that offline. Great. Will it chime at 1 Eastern or 12 Central? Yes. Any additional questions about what you saw today?
Hey, Ryan, one quick question about what you showed for the Thrive product.
Yeah.
You'd shown the other two tools, Tableau and Power BI. Mm-hmm. Is there additional cost to that, or is it part of the package that you guys are offering now?
Well, that's a good question, John. Yeah, it's good. The way it's going to work, licensing is going to work is there's a base licensing cost for Thrive, and then you get a single BI tool, and each additional BI tool it's like a module that you add on. So it's not, it's a smaller price to add on additional BI tools.
Great, thanks.
Yep.
All right, Ryan, thank you so much. I think we're gonna move to our break. If there's any other questions for Ryan, feel free to post it in the chat. I don't know if Ryan's gonna stick around, but somebody else can probably answer.
I'll be around.
Okay, so we're about 5 minutes behind, so we'll just take our quick 5-minute break. Let's come back. I'm in Central Time, so 2:20, and then we'll move into the Cognos mobile app with Jason. So I'm in a break, and we'll be back.
Thanks, everybody.
All right, let's get going. This is Jason Bennett from IBM. The next three, I'm going to be hosting or presenting the next three sessions. We're going to talk, the next session is going to be about mobile, Cognos Analytics Mobile, the new mobile app that just came out in July with 11.1.7. Then topic 2 will be the integration, creating custom maps with Mapbox, and then integrating those into a Cognos Analytics dashboard. And then finally, integrating weather and a REST-based connection, one of the new connections with 11.1.7 into a Cognos Analytics dashboard also. Currently, there are 3 ways to access Cognos Analytics. The traditional browser-based UI that everyone is familiar with, people access, for those still on version 10, reports, the various studios, Report Studio, Analysis Studio, etc. Now it's report authoring in version 11. So that's still full feature and functionality. And we've had a reporting app also that's been out since about 2012, about that time frame, which still can handle online reports. And this is the app that, or the mobile app that's used to open active reports. And while we're not continuing to make any additional investment in active reports, the advances that we've made with Cognos Analytics have really been geared toward continuing to have an online experience, whether that's in dashboards or some of the things that we'll see with the new app. As the new mobile app was being developed, it was really developed with mobile in mind, to get things on the go, to keep the training curve low, to keep it flat. And we'll talk a bit more about what went into it and why just before we're ready to do the demonstration. And it really truly was designed with mobile first. When the first generation mobile app came out, mobile was very present, but it still, I think, was a bit in its infancy. And I think IBM back at that time really still was thinking about traditional based reporting only on a phone. And as all of us know, we use our devices all the time. They're constantly with us. They're always near us. We get alerts on them. We get reminders. It really is the thing that helps manage our lives. And in designing this new mobile application, those are some of the things that IBM had in mind. The target audience were executives, managers, or people always on the go. The device is always with us. But we also focused on the smartphone when we realized that most, if not all people, have their phones with them most of the time and generally don't lug a tablet around unless there's a conference or they're working from a hotel room maybe, or they're on a plane, something like that. But predominantly, people are using their phones of all shapes and sizes, the various phone types, whether it's Android or Apple, etc. But that was the mindset that IBM had when we were thinking about redesigning this. And the experience subsequently is optimized for smartphones. It can still be used with other devices. I can still use it with my tablet. I've got it running on my iPad. It works great. But at least at this point, it really was optimized for people being on the go, and subsequently optimized to have visualizations rendered on a smaller device because it's always with us. And we also were acutely aware that we did not want this mobile application to be just another dashboarding experience or another reporting experience, because we already have that. We don't need another one of those. We wanted to get to the notion of keeping a flat training curve. I was talking with somebody about technology for my son's school about a year or so ago, and someone had brought up the need for some technology training, and the rest of the committee said, well, that there's a basic or minimum level of competence that kids generally, young kids have, just in terms of using technology. And this person disagreed. So I asked them, well, do you have a smartphone? And she said, yes. And I said, well, where did you get training to use the browser or the mail app? And there was just a long pause. And the revelation was applications that come out for phones or devices now have to be easy, and people have to be able to use them very quickly, but they have to be powerful at the same time. And those were some of the really guiding and leading tenets that led us to where we are, at least for this first release of the new mobile app. It did come out with R7 11.1.7 in about July. And like with many or most apps, maybe one of the most important things is it has to tell me when something is happening. I can't always go fishing for the data. I can't always go looking for it. I don't have time. Our calendars have reminders. When something's on sale, we get reminded. When a payment or transaction is processed through our bank account, we get reminded. And we took the same approach with wanting to have some important features available in this new mobile app. And Cognos Analytics is now bringing that to the mobile experience. Alerts can be added and changed, deleted. It's easy and customized to use, very intuitive. And we'll see that with the demonstration. And as we were thinking about things that were on the go, we didn't want to lose sight of the power of having a managed environment. I mean, one of Cognos's strengths, really forever, is the ability to bring enterprise level content into one place, into one view for users, and have it secure, have it be efficient, and be able to do things like share it. And we didn't want to lose sight of the things that IBM has done very well over the course of its BI existence. But at the same time, we didn't want to look back and say, well, here's how we designed the old mobile app. Why don't we just create the new one in its shadow or in its likeness? Because we were really ready for a more modern experience. as I'm looking at the mobile app or using the mobile app, I just like dashboards, I can use the virtual assistant to search for content, search for information. It'll render visualizations that then I can look at. I can create pin boards, which is not a dashboard, but it has a similar concept to it. But again, we wanted to keep it very, very simple. With the first release of the new Cognos Analytics mobile app, it's available on IBM Cloud. It is not yet available on premise. It's not available on premise because there were some considerations that IBM needed to take it into consideration relative to how clients had their environment configured. And with as vast and different as each client or customer's environment is, there were some things that we couldn't make assumptions on when rolling the new mobile app out to our on-premise customer installations. But that is coming soon. It is right now for iPhones for day one, which was July, but stay tuned for Android because we do expect that to follow shortly. I don't remember seeing a published date for Android, but I would expect it probably in the first quarter. What we're going to do next is we're going to get into our Mapbox Studio integration with Cognos Analytics. I'm going to try to keep this demo pretty crisp and moving along. I got about 50 minutes for it. I don't think it's going to take about 50 minutes, but we'll see. We'll see how things go. So if you've ever used MapQuest to map something out, you're using Mapbox Maps. You're using Pitney Bowes, what are called shapes or polygons, and the things that you see in a map, whether it's their buildings, their roads, their parking structures, those are all considered polygons. And Pitney Bowes provides those through the Mapbox partnership. And they're integrated with Cognos Analytics. And I'm going to show how those can be integrated then into, right directly into Cognos Analytics. And by the way, the subscription with Mapbox Studio or with Mapbox is free. So if you have Cognos Analytics, you automatically get integration free with Mapbox. And why use maps? Well, most people are visual. Seeing the location, even hyper-local locations of places and things, helps us understand the role and relationships of those things to their surroundings. Maps don't have to be geographic. Sometimes they're referred to as schematics or non-geo-based maps, non-geo-based locations, warehouses, schools, stadiums, airplanes. You get the idea. IBM introduced schematics and custom visualizations in a recent release, but maybe we can cover that in a subsequent user group meeting. But for today, what we're going to do is I'm going to go into Mapbox Studio, and setting up an account is free. Just go to mapbox.com. You do not need to use your IBM ID. You can use whatever ID you want to use to set up that account.
Jason, are you sharing your screen?
I'm not yet. I will be in just 1 second. Okay, hopefully you guys can all see that now.
It's sharing.
All right, good. Setting up an account for Mapbox is free, which makes the price very right. There are going to be some terms that I'll introduce you guys today. And what I'm going to do is the premise behind the demonstration is I want to give optics on how you would create a map, let's say for the getting things, quote, back to normal. And we know that in today's day and age, things are either not open or partially open, or the plans are in place. Sometimes the plans get rolled back. The pandemic has just had a massively disruptive impact on all of our lives. And we want to be as careful as we possibly can, keeping everyone safe, keeping everyone healthy. But I think there's a bit of us that kind of wants to get back out among people, and we just want to get back to normal and doing the things that we've always done and love. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a custom map of an NFL stadium and then integrate it with some data over a time series to show what the property management and the NFL team is doing to allow people back into the stadium, but in a way that keeps them safe. In this case can be used in a number of other scenarios, from schools, casinos, they've been hit especially hard. Movie theaters, there are movie theaters in our locale that I don't think the lights have been on probably since May or even earlier than that. So things are pretty tough for a lot of enterprises. But the visuals are so powerful because as you see certain spaces, even with gathering limitations, you see them start to fill up. You get an idea of where people are, where the risks are, how to manage those risks. So let's get started. Now, there are going to be a few terms I need to introduce everybody to. First, there's going to be a term called features. And these are the things that I'm actually going to place on the map. So we'll have points, we'll have polygons, shapes, and lines. They're analogous to the metadata in a report. And what I call them in the map will be important because I'll reference those features in the map to columns in the data that I'm going to need to marry up with the map. Data set. Data set is in GeoJSON format, and I can upload a GeoJSON file. I can export the work that I've done so far to safe keep it. There are a number of, let's say, government sites and other places that do offer GeoJSON based services. Some are free, some are not. But nonetheless, the raw data set is going to contain essentially all the features, the points, the locales. And then what I'm going to do is then take that and compile it into what's called a tile set. A tile set is essentially a compressed version of all of the features that I'm creating in this map, and will then be accessible in Cognos Analytics. Okay, let me check the chat so far. Before we get in the map box. Bree, do you see any questions in the chat?
No questions yet.
All right, so let's get started. I'm going to create a new data set. I can upload a GeoJSON file if I have one already created, but I'm going to create a blank one. So we'll call this. I suspect there won't be any surprises as to what I am going to map here today. Since it does happen to be the greatest team ever. Now, when I get started, I've got a number of different things that are available to me. Now, you can see in the upper left-hand corner, I've got no features because I really haven't created anything yet. I've just got started. I've got my canvas here. I've got some options in terms of once the data set is created, how do I search it? The different background styles. I am going to pick a different background style as I get going. History is really cool because essentially I can see a log of all of the changes that I've made so far while building. Now, one way to create a custom map is I could zoom in. If I know where it's going to be, I could start to draw shapes, draw polygons, put points on there. But what I want to do is search for a couple of things. So let's get started. I will search for Statue of Liberty, and it'll find it. And for those of you who are familiar with the Statue of Liberty, or have been there before, you can see the dotted line that goes around the perimeter of Liberty Island. Everything to the inside of the perimeter is owned by New York. Everything to the outside of the perimeter is owned by New Jersey. One little. You can also search by zip code. I can also start there. So the origination process of getting started with a map can be a bit simpler than just hunting and pecking for certain landmarks or certain things that I want to get started with. I can also overseas. Abbey Road Studios. Famous crossing. Maybe I want to make a map of this. Maybe I want to combine this map with something else that I've already built. I'm in the same general geo area. If I'm planning for an event, if there are certain things going on in the UK, I want to know where landmarks are. I know I'm going to have visitors. I know that I'm going to have tourists, but I've got to keep people safe. I've got to reroute traffic. I've got to make sure I've just got enough capacity in order to accommodate all of the citizens who are going to be. But let's get going. Now this map background type is fine. It gives me a general idea of where things are, a general outline, a general shape. But I'm going to change this to satellite street. It does give me a bit more detail on where things are. And I actually kind of like this. Again, you can see 0 features. If I need to change or edit the name of this data set, again, we're in the data set mode we're creating. We have not yet made anything available to Cognos Analytics. We're still really in the artist phase or in the drawing phase. So let's start out. I'm going to draw a couple of points, and let's start out with, let's say, the gates. I'm just going to drop this point here where I know there's a gate. I'm going to add a property. And again, property is really important because the property names will be the column headings that I'm going to define in the layers of the map within Cognos Analytics. And it's also going to be what I'm going to line up with the data that I want to populate in these various properties. This one will be gate. We'll call this Mills Fleet Farm. I'll confirm that. Let's put another gate out there. This one will also be gate. I can reuse those properties. And we'll add one more gate. All right. Now I've got 3 points. You can zoom in, not really going to tell me a lot, but they'll be important because what I'm going to need to do is reference these in the data and in the map within Cognos Analytics. Now I can take these, I can change them, I can move them around. The properties will not change as I've defined them. They'll still be called gate with a value of Mills Fleet Farm. But if I decide to move it, put it in the wrong place, I need to move it over because what I might be doing is rerouting the fans who are coming into the stadium into, let's say, an extended gate in order to separate traffic to allow for distancing a bit, again, to keep people safe. You'll also notice, so now I've got 3 features because I've got 3 gates. If you watch up here in the latitude and longitude section, as I highlight over various sections in the map, it's over here in the latitude and longitude section. As I move around in the parking lot, it gives me very hyper-local, or has hyper-local sensitivity in terms of just being able to see very specific spots in the place that I'm going to be mapping. which is really cool, really important, because it gives me the level of detail that I just might need in order to create the objects and the things that I'm going to be looking for. Marie, I'm going to ask if you'll please help me monitor the chat while I'm sharing, at least on this screen.
Sure. And there's just a comment, which I don't know that there's much you can do about it. Every so often your voice kind of cuts out and then comes back.
Oh, okay. Well, hopefully you didn't miss too much.
No, I mean, I think it's okay for right now.
Okay, we've got 3 features, we've got 3 dates, we've called them such, we've got values. If I need to change the values for those, or if I need to delete those, I of course can do that. But let's zoom in here a little bit. I'm going to create a line. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to outline a section of the seating area here at Lambeau Field. Because this, as I think about, as a part of the property management group, as I think about where I want people to be seated, and subsequently want to be keeping them safe, I may need to keep some sections open and some sections closed. I may not want to open up the entire stadium all at one time. I may need to keep certain sections or subsections either odd or even or every other. Within those subsections, I may need to keep those in mind as I want to ensure that I can bring fans in to watch the game, but at the same time, again, I'm keeping them. I'll add this property called seating. And this section I'm going to call 100 to 110. It may so happen that I might want to change or reshape this particular polygon, and I can move it in totality. So maybe I want to slide it over if we decide that one of the end sections we're going to leave open, or if I decide that I want to move some of this initial sections of where I've placed these endpoints, because I either want to make it smaller or I just want to reroute things a bit. As my opening plan changes, as the season progresses on, and more fans want to go to games as we open it up, I'm just going to need to be able to adjust and ebb and flow a bit in terms of what I'm creating here in order to keep people safe. All right, let's create one more line. Here. All right, we'll add this property. This will also be seating. Call this 130 to 139, and we'll confirm. I'm going to add one more, and instead of using the line or instead of using the point, I'm going to draw a polygon. And let's create something in our seating section. And you'll notice that when I use this feature, it looks a little bit different while I'm creating the area. And honestly, this is the drawing feature that I tend to like the most because it just quite honestly goes the fastest. I don't think it has the greatest level of precision, but for what I'm going to do here, that's perfectly okay. This will be seating also. I've already got 100 through 110, 130 through 139, so let's call this 112 through 128. And I'm also going to use this polygon to create a parking. We'll just call this guy lot A. Confirm it. All right, now let's save this. I've added 7 features. I've modified none. I've deleted. Let's do this quick save. Now, over time, I may have a drawing like this or a data set that maybe may have thousands and thousands and thousands of features. I may not know off the top of my head where those are. I may want to search the data set. I can do that here. I've got 3 areas that I've defined in seating. I've got 8. And I've also got 1 feature. So I can easily search those.
Hey, Jason,
Yeah, go ahead.
you were cutting out really bad there.
Oh, sorry.
Now you're good.
All right. So if you didn't hear, what I can do is just search the data set over time. Sometimes these data sets get very dense. They sometimes can get complex, and much in the same way you would search for something in Google or in a file system, or maybe even search content in the content store. It generally is quite helpful if you can just go right to that. Something really cool. History. It's got a list of everything that I've done from the time I started, created a point, moved the point, modified. Here's the area of the seating chart that we modified. All the way to moving the polygon. Save it. And now we're good to go. All right, what I'm going to do now, Maria, are there any questions?
No.
All right, let's move on. I'm now going to take this data set and I'm going to compile it into a tile set. And remember, the tile set is the compressed version of all of these features, and it's structured in a way that the Mapbox API within Cognos Analytics can now call it, and it can be used accordingly to create maps within a dashboard and in a report, by the way. The method by which you would call a custom map in a report or in a dashboard is exactly the same, no different. If I decide to export this, I can export this into a data set, but let's create our tile set here. Here's my data set. I'm going to export this to a tile set. I did not create a whole ton of features in here because as I create more and more objects, more and more features, etc., it does take a bit longer and longer and longer for the tile set to compile. And for the purposes of this demo, I just wanted to keep things easy, keep things moving, but let's export this to a new tile set. This will take just a minute. And it's creating a tile set, what's called a tile set ID. I'm going to use that inside Cognos Analytics along with a couple of the other properties that the tile set creates in different layers of the geomap that's in the dashboard. All right, let's have a look at what got created. Look at our Titletown tile set. The first thing I need to do is I need to make this public. Right now, it's just private to me. Only I can see it. And I need to make this public so that it's accessible with Cognos, from Cognos Analytics. If it's private, I can't see it within Cognos Analytics. Now, once it's public, if I create a map, pull it into a dashboard, pull it into a report, and I share that report or that dashboard with a friend, a colleague, a coworker, they can see it freely. There are no restrictions to seeing that. I also need to stress that as Cognos makes calls to Mapbox using the Mapbox API, that none of your customer or client data touches the internet. All it's going to be doing is looking for coordinates for shapes, for polygons, for features, for latitude, longitude, as it makes that call to the internet, and then pulls those down and aligns them to the map. None of your customer data, none of your personal private data makes it to the internet. It never goes out, never. We've made this public. Let's have a look at the properties of this tile set. I'm going to need this tile set ID. I'll copy that. And you can see the layer details. I need title_town, and here are the columns that I'll reference in the data set that I uploaded. It's just an Excel file and a data set that I uploaded. Actually, before I want to show you what a more complete data set looks like. I've done a couple of these demos before. I did a demonstration a couple of years ago for the North Texas user group, where I drew a map of DFW and integrated some forecasting capabilities in terms of where to put foot traffic from inside the airport, how gates are managed based on the construction that happens at DFW, which is all the time. Given that some passengers may have families, some may have families with little kids. And I created that map and this map of Lambeau Field. I probably created this in about a half hour, all told. Teaching myself how to use Mapbox Studio was fast. It's not difficult. Learning curve is flat. And again, I created this map pretty quickly. If I click on these, I've got parking lot C, B, got the various lots. Here are my gates, Associated Bank, and then all of my various seating areas. Lambeau Leap South, North, box seats, press box, etc. So this is what a more complete data set would look like. And when I exported this to a tile set, it did take a little bit longer, but since it's already created, we'll leave it in place. Okay, let's go back to the tile set that we just created called Titletown. Make sure that we've got the right tile set ID. And let's drag in a map. Okay. Now there are some important things that properties of the tile set that we need to bring over into the properties of the map, so that when the API call is made, that there's alignment. So let's go to the properties of the map, regions layer, tile set ID. Layer name, we're going to need the layer name. And we'll grab Titletown and we'll put it in the layer name. In the property name, there are two layers that are available in Cognos Analytics. And there are subsequently two layers from the tile set that I want to grab. I think I'm going to grab seating for sure. I'll just copy and paste those in. Now you'll notice that nothing lit up on the map yet. All I've done is connected the map using the map API to Mapbox, or that custom map. I haven't brought in any data yet. But to give you an idea of data that I'm going to bring in and then mash up with the map, let's create a table, and you can get an idea of what I'm working with. We've got a date field, the week number, or the season, week of the season. Fields are important, the values are important. And you can see here the features that we brought in, the values for those features, and then ultimately the features by week number for each gate, for parking, and for seating, and all my sections, all of the parking lot areas, and subsequently the entry points where people will be coming into the stadium. So I'll keep this up just for a minute. Maria, are there any questions so far?
Yeah, there was one question about training. I'm assuming it was in Mapbox because that's where you were when the question came in.
Oh,
I know
okay.
you said it's pretty easy to use, but are there, I don't know, online tutorials or things where we can, access some training?
Yeah, sure. I don't know to what extent there's deep training, but what I found using Mapbox Studio is the hints and the tips, like learn how to adjust zoom extent, or learn about tile set, something about tile sets. What I found is the hints or features that I'm using in Mapbox is actually quite rich. Let's see, what is it? A data set is an editable collection of GeoJSON features. So if I click on data set, now I've got an index of all of the terms that I might need to learn what they mean, and then subsequently how to use them.
Okay, thanks. There's one other question that came in.
Yeah.
I think you had mentioned Mapbox is free, or Mapbox Studio is free. Do you want to just kind of touch on that?
Sure, it's free. And when I say it's
Wait,
when I say it's
is there
free,
any limitations to like size of files, how many files?
yeah, there actually are. That's a good question. So when I say it's free, if I want to integrate Cognos Maps with Google Maps, I got to pay for those. Or integrate them in with Esri, I got to pay for each call based on the service, however they price it. Every time I use Cognos Analytics with Mapbox, all of the calls to custom maps or even existing GeoJSON maps that I might download from a public site, all those calls are free. Setting up an account with Mapbox Studio is free. However, there are limitations. I don't know comprehensively what the limitations are, but some of the things that I've seen are the number of uploads that you get per month, I think is capped to about 20. And the size of each upload, I think, also has a cap. And what I've found in using Mapbox Maps, especially when if I download a GeoJSON file from, let's say, the St. Louis Fed or from Bureau of Labor Statistics, something like that, where they would use maps, depending on how rich or how detailed, how many layers those maps have, the size of those files that you'll download can get big pretty quickly. But I suspect that that with the free version of Mapbox Studio has some limitations. A subscription to Mapbox Studio probably relieves you of those limitations, but the integration with Cognos and Mapbox will always be free. So it just means if you're going to do map development, you either get a light version of the tool or a fully baked version of the tool.
Thank you.
Sure. We brought in one layer, and that layer is a property for the title layer. And two. It's going to use the same tile set as I'm referencing the same. I don't have to. I can use, if I have maps that I want to layer on top of each other. So for example, I may want to take a geographical based map that has weather and lay that on top of, that's got all the features and the points and so on and so forth. And I may want to lay that on top of another map that I create, let's say if it's a stadium or a park, Central Park, something like that. I'm not limited or constrained to have each one of these layers in Cognos Analytics reference the exact same tile set. I can have essentially have it referencing two sources. And the layer name is going to be the same. The property, let's go. It's going to be a point layer, so it should be bubble. Title town, shooting, date. not going to goof around with the legends at all, at least not at this point. Here's my region layer and
Jason, we
flat.
can't hear you.
Is this any better?
Yes.
All right. I'm not going to touch the lat long layer. I'm just going to add data into the data slots for the region layer and the point layer. For the region layer, I know that I've got, that's seating. So let's grab values. That's going to be the location. And let's grab patrons, see if I'm doing this the right way. Let's zoom in here a bit. Okay, good. Now I can see the map has already illuminated the areas that I've identified as a part of the region layer that I mapped to seating on this custom map. What we had before. Satellite streets. Okay, much better. And if I highlight this, section 112 through 128 for all weeks is about 155,000. That's a lot of people, but I also know that I'm planning this week by week by week. Let's now bring in the value for our total. I'll bring in value also. And again, patrons. One thing that I did notice with custom maps is the ability to either search the map or to really have deep controls over zoom, I think tends to be a bit limited with the free version of Mapbox Studio that I'm using. I think there are some properties and controls in the map that will allow me to more closely manage that and control that. But at least initially what I'm seeing is when I do click on some of the other data items from the list, things tend to zoom in and zoom out quite a bit. But let's add the color. See that zoomed out a little bit. But now I can see, let's go to week 8. That will filter the map. We're working on the same data set. And this happens to be section 130 to 139. We've got none here. We have any here. We've got 1,284 in section 100 through 110. So in the first week, we're starting to bring patrons into the stadium. We want to do this in a very measured way. We want to keep people safe, but at the same time, let them root for the winning team. As I traverse down each week, I have the ability to see what I'll end up seeing is the changes in the data. So let's go to week 12, which happens to be 1229. And let's see, now in section 130 to 139, I've got 500. And I've got 12,000 now in 112 through 120. Just see it up here correctly. 112 through 128 and 111 through 1,000. Now I've got 0 patrons here, and I think we had some in the prior weeks, but what I've decided to do as a property manager is I've decided to shift those ticket holders to a different location because as I need to take additional precautions, I may want to put, even though I had patrons, let's say a dense concentration of patrons in one area of the stadium, I may want to move them for for a subsequent week. And especially with season ticket holders, that does get a bit tricky because people may be expecting to sit in seats that they've rightfully purchased, but I've got an obligation to keep them safe. So if I need to move them up or move them down or over sections, so long as they're still in the ticket price range they paid for, then I've got the liberty to do that. Okay, on the next tab, I've got something that I'm calling a finished view. Let's maximize this. And this is, I think, more akin to what a traditional dashboard would look like. I've got 11, 15 to 11:29, all the way through 124, which is the NFC Championship game, which inevitably will be held in Green Bay. I think we all know that. I'm counting on that. But let's just take a look at what patrons they look like in terms of where they're seated. So 111 to 127 has 2,500. We've got a few people here toward the north end zone. South end zone has none, because we're not ready for those folks yet. And on the west side, we also have none. Now this starts to fill in a bit. I got about 15,000 here. South end zone, I've got about 3,700, and 3,000 in the north, on the north side of the stadium. And the east side still continues to fill out also. Marie, are there any questions in the chat?
No questions, but there is a comment. Go Pack, go.
Oh, yes, thank you. By the time we get to the NFC Championship game, we've so packed the stadium. We've got about 45,000 here, 38,000 on the west side. You can see this this area here. We've just had to move some of the visiting team into the parking lot in order to allow all of the Packer fans, tailgaters included. But it says the flexibility. Oftentimes, when you have large crowds that might surpass the capacity of a facility, a couple of years ago when the Saints infamously lost the NFC Championship game with that blown call right at toward the end of the game, I was actually coming into New Orleans at that time for a business trip, and they had, as a part of the viewing experience for fans, they had the stadium was packed. I think it's a Superdome was packed, but they also had large viewing screens like in the parking lot. And that allowed fans to get as close as they could to the stadium and the experience. So moving these fans to a part of the property that's not inside, but is still close proximity is an option for us now, because we've got the ability to map parts of the property to allow for fans to have that experience. And again, can't stress it enough, keeping people safe. Now, what I'll also do here is I'm going to turn on forecasting. And what I really would like to see is in the future, I've got fan attendance week by week. I've got the projection that fan earlier part of the season, or the season was extended. I've got the ability to forecast. At some point, I'm hoping that part of these projected numbers that the dashboard can forecast or project out can also be brought into these maps. But so far, what I've seen is the map will only bring in observed values and not forecast or projected values. But stay tuned. I think that would be a pretty cool feature. I can also see, let's see. I can also see the performance statistics for each one of the visualizations, which oftentimes is going to be pretty helpful if I'm looking at performance. If I've started to add features, compiled it into a tile set, I'm bringing it into a map, and it's just taking longer. Now I can better diagnose where I think that issue may be coming from. Okay, Marie, if there aren't any questions, I think that was all I was. Mapbox, at least for Mapbox maps.
Yeah, there's no questions right now.
All right.
So were you saying you wanted to shift away from Mapbox into the last session?
Yeah, I think so. Do we want to take 5? Or we can just keep moving too?
It doesn't, I don't really care.
All right, why don't we keep moving?
Yeah, let's just keep going.
All right, good. Maybe we can let everybody go a bit early today. Okay, the final session, I think it's going to take about 25 minutes, and I'm going to do a couple of things. I'm going to bring in, make sure this didn't come up here. I'm going to bring in 2 different types of data sources. I'm going to bring in weather, and I'm going to bring in something from a REST-based connection. And we introduced REST connections into Cognos Analytics as a connected data source in 11.1.7. And I can't tell you how long I've had customers, had clients ask us when the heck we're going to be able to connect to a REST endpoint that in through Cognos Analytics. And the way that REST is described, or RESTful API design, is designed to take advantage of existing protocols like HTTP, open source protocols. While REST can be used nearly, you can utilize nearly any protocol. Usually takes advantage of HTTP most often when used for web-based, of course, APIs. Now, what IBM, or at least for Cognos, what I think we're trying to do is get away from SOAP calls and get into or utilize REST-based calls that are open source, that I think are a bit more flexible and allow our clients some feature functionality when connecting to their systems, data sources, web services, etc. Just allows them some flexibility that they otherwise wouldn't have, or may not want to try to develop with something that's programmatic based, let's say, called that would be called through the SDK. Weather API, I'm also going to blend in. That was introduced into Cognos Analytics quite a bit ago. And with our acquisition of the weather company, or at least the data component of the weather company, especially with the market that I support, travel and transportation, weather has an absolute huge impact on the lives of the people who are in those markets. And it's not just so much where is it raining or is it hot, but is the weather such that it's going to disrupt the supply chain? Is the weather such that if I have certain things arranged in a location where I'm selling something, do I need to rearrange those things to optimize either the shopping experience, where people are getting things right away? Maybe they're in a hurry, they need to be moved to the front of the store, to the front of the location, where I would otherwise put those things in the back. Or do I want to make things that are just more convenient, where people can pick them up one fell swoop as they enter the store? The main focus of this is going to be on weather, but we'll bring in a REST connection into a data module also. Okay, so let's get started. First thing we're going to do is we're going to create a data server connection, and we'll create the weather one first. And the weather company connections are pretty simple. I'm just going to leave it at that. JDBC : TWC : whack whack. And that's going to be about it. And I don't need to do anything else. The ID that I'm going to use can be any ID, any old ID that I want. However, the password is going to be the API key that I've purchased through the subscription to the weather company. Unlike Mapbox, the weather company subscriptions are not free. Let's just prompt for the user ID and the password. Let's call this any user. paste in my password. Admit it, I want to save it. Okay. But I want to create a sign-on because as I'm making calls, I don't want to be prompted every single time. So let's create a sign-on here. Call this TWC sign. Passwords match. Save it. Test it. I need to save this. We'll call this their demo for user group. Okay. Now that I've got my sign-on, I've got the connection details. I need to bring in the various schemas. I've got forecast available to me. I've got historical data available to me. The level of granularity that we have available is at lat long, but it also is at a postal code. And the postal code is going to be important because by itself, the weather API does require filters on the data for the data to be returned. I can't just bring in the table from the forecast or from the historical schema and have it just return everything to me and I just scroll and scroll and scroll. I do have to have filters. When I bring this into a data module, you'll see how I do that. So let's just bring in, I'm going to bring in system because it'll give you an idea of what fields are available to me and what the format has to be. And I don't want to retrieve samples. I want everything. I also want geography because it'll give me an idea of what the format is for postal code because there is a specific format that it is looking for. That. And then let's grab historical. And those are about done. So those are done. We'll create our data module. We'll also pull in an Excel file that I'm going to use to join up. That's going to serve as my filter. Now I could have prompts. I could have those filters just baked into the data module, but I'm going to use Excel to provide them. Weather demo user group. And let's bring in historical schema. Let's start with that. Now, what you'll see here for weather is you've got all products, which is a combination of all of the dew point observations, the feels like observations, the wind gust observations, and even by themselves, each one of these products, the dew point product has a ton of different observations. So under all products, I'm going to see everything. And honestly, that's just way too much. So I'm just going to grab temperature, which I think is going to have everything that I need. Precipitation, depending on the time of the year. If it's seasonal, that might be pretty helpful, especially if I'm looking forward-looking. If snow or inclement weather might be important. I don't know about where you guys are, but Halloween last year, we had a whole bunch of snow here in South Central Wisconsin, and it was honestly no fun. I'll bring in that table. And I get no results, as I said before, because there are no filters on this. We have to apply filters. And we're going to do that with a join in just a second. I do want to add another source. Go to our weather demo UG. And let's just bring in geography. And that's going to give us the format that all of our locations have to be in. Now, I'm not going to join this table to anything. This thing is just, this table is just informational to me only. But I can see that the postal key looks like it's a zip code, colon, and then the country code. So let's just create a quick filter. Search for US. Those are the zip codes that I'm going to be using because those are in my file. Now I've got something that looks a bit more familiar. I've got latitude, longitude, postal key, the postal code. All right, so this is starting to look good. Let me just save this quickly. And where do I think there's a weather company? There we go. User group DM. All right, let's save that. Now I'm going to bring in the Excel file that has some, I think the top 10 cities for, I think they either use population or population density. So I'm going to blend in weather with population density, density per square foot, total population, that type of thing. So let's grab another source. Grab this from our weather folder. US postal codes TWC. And again, this is what I uploaded. I created this a couple of weeks ago. Let's bring this in, select the tables we want, and we want top 10 cities. Now, just for grins, let's have a look at top 10 cities to see what it looks like. I've got a postal key, a postal code, a place name, which is the city, state, the abbreviated state, population, square mile density, and the date. This is going to be important. When the API calls are made to through the weather API, it's on a zip code or postal key basis and also by a day basis. So as you can imagine, if you pull in 2 years worth of data for, let's say, 400 or 500 different postal codes, that can be a heck of a lot of data with any given call. Now, admittedly, I have seen some customers who have subscriptions to the weather data, and since historical data doesn't change, it is what it is. The observations are what they are. I have seen clients take snapshots of weather data and store it in their data warehouse because then they can manage it, and they've paid for the subscription, they've paid for the service, so I believe they can rightfully do that. But that's one option to create what I'll say a running total of dates and locales for which you want to get historical data. Maria, are you seeing any questions in the chat?
There was a question, but I got answered.
Oh, okay, good. Thank you. Okay, the top 10 cities is going to serve as our filter for the temperature table. Let's join these together. Got postal key and postal key on the temperature side. You can see no data available. Again, I haven't filtered it yet. Let's match those. I'm also going to filter on date because I want the date range that I've got in my Excel file that's going to limit the days that I want those observations to come back from the API call. I want those to be in effect in place when that call is made. We'll match those, and I can see I've got two matched columns: postal key equals postal key, date equals date. Inner join 1-to-1 and unique range of values. Let's see if this is going to work for us. All right, good. So now I've got data from, looks like I've got data from my Excel file. So I've got postal code, the place name, the state, square miles, my matched columns, postal key and date, latitude, longitude, and now I've got all of my temperature data. Now, the good news is, or the bad news is, all of the temperature observations are in kelvins. I can't do anything with kelvins. However, I can create a custom calculation that allows me to convert kelvins to the temperature. So let me do that. I'm going to create a custom calculation in temperature because that's where I want it to be. And the calculation to convert temperature or kelvins to Fahrenheit in this instance is the temperature times 9/5 divided times or plus 32. Clear as mud. Let's create a new calculation. Here we go. And we'll call this Av temp Fahrenheit. Daytime average. So I'll paste in temperature local day average. I happen to have gotten that temperature local daytime average minus 273.15 times 9/5, and then take all that plus 30. Now, since I haven't made a call using the weather API yet, if I check or validate the formula, I'm not going to get any results back. But what we can do, once the formula is created, is I can go to the join properties and I can refresh it. And let's see what we get here. All right, much better. The local average is 295 kelvins and it's about 75.5 degrees. That's something that makes a whole lot more sense for me, especially in Yonkers, New York, around July 1st. So now it's starting to get to something that I can actually use. Okay, questions so far?
No questions.
All right, the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to create a REST connection. Again, REST is an open source connection-based method that allows you to connect to an endpoint that is listening as or accepts REST-based connections. And more, what I think we're seeing is whether it's databases or web services, even some of our competitor products, where people might want to connect an IBM product to a competitor-based product, and REST is the way that we're being asked, IBM is being asked to connect to our competitor. We just have to be flexible. So let's create that REST-based connection. And the connection type that we've chosen, there are a number of different, as I understand it, that we were evaluating, a number of different REST-based methods. We settled on the program direct REST-based connection. So I've got my connection parameters here. And the website that I'm using, or the connection that I'm using, it's from the sportsdb.com. If I were to take and copy this and paste this just in a browser, which REST supports, I get something that's pretty ugly. So let me move it into Firefox, which is a bit more flexible. Organizing this. So there we go. So I've got JSON. I'll expand it all. And this is essentially the response back from the REST call. This is what the looks like from a browser, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to render this in a REST response back from this website into a Cognos Analytics data module so that I can blend it in with my dashboard. Now, this particular website accepts REST calls. It accepts anonymous REST calls. If you subscribe to a service or you have a database or a REST-based connection that requires an ID and a password, you would create that sign-on and generally connect through it through the convention. Let's test that. If it succeed, we'll save it. New name, did it not save it? I hope I don't have to do that again. Okay, looks like we did. Okay, so let's do that quickly. this. That's not it. Let me grab my website. Grab the connection details. Must be changed from the phone. Let's do that. Let's call this NFL. That. All right, let's call this NFL demo. There we go. Good to go. Now let's go back into our game module. Our weather stuff. Let's go to add new sources. Go to NFL demo. And did we load a schema? We did not load a schema. Always load your schemas. Go to NFL demo. Connections. Schemas. There we go. And I believe the schema that we want to load is
Jason, we can't hear you again.
Oh, is this better?
Yes.
All right, sorry. Let's load auto rest. I don't think we need information. I don't think we need public, and we certainly don't need the. How are we doing? Ray, can you hear me?
No, we couldn't hear you.
Oh, how are we doing for time?
We got about 10 minutes left.
All right, should be easy enough to finish in that time frame. Demo. There we go. Schema, what tables are there? There we go. So this is going to have a lot of helpful information for data that we want to bring in. So let's just have a look at all of our team stuff. It's got everything for the NFL. So I've got stuff for the Arizona Cardinals. So all 32 teams are now going to be in here. Their name, their website. They've got some social media, social media information in there. They've got stadium. I'm going to create a dashboard that brings in some of this, talk about stadium capacity. So we'll save this, and now it's time to bring in this data into a dashboard. And while this saves, what I've seen a lot of clients do is mash up especially the weather data in with predictive-based forecasting, or even strategic planning as a way to plan for workforce, as a plan for for clients, for space planning. It's the number of use cases are really endless, and it's just a critically important asset to have when doing your planning and doing your strategic forecasting. Let's create a dashboard. 2x2. I'm going to take advantage of the maps that are here in Cognos Analytics. Grab a map, drop that here. And let's grab top 10 cities. And in region, we want to, I think we'll put in state and then population. Okay, that looks good so far. So at least for the areas, we want to make this average because there aren't 247 million people who live in Texas. Oops. So let's make this average population, summarize average. All right, much better. So for the observed areas in Texas for this data set, what I'm looking at is an average population of about 1. All right, for points, there. Let's grab state abbreviation. And let's see if we can bring in place name. So here we've got our locations, places in Texas, Dallas, Houston, Chicago. I think these were the top 10 cities that I selected as a part of this data set. But now let's grab the weather stuff. We'll grab average temperature. Point size. Let's try point color too. Okay, now things are really starting to take shape. Let's add date to list, table rather, and we'll add date to this because date's going to be really important. Here's my date range from July 1st all the way to August 17th. So let's see how the temperature fluctuates. July 1st, average temp is about 90 degrees in Phoenix, still pretty hot, 86.8. But in New York, Yonkers, it's only about 70 degrees. But let's fast forward to the dog days of summer, August 16th, just before kids are going back to school. We're now at a temperature of 101. And temperatures have also risen significantly in other parts of the country. All right, so we brought in dates, we brought in weather. Now let's bring in something from our REST-based source. And this is our REST stuff. We can bring in a word cloud. What I think I'm going to do is now show the stadiums, which will mean the words. Stadium location, and then stadium capacity. All right, so I get an error here. And what Cognos Analytics is going to try to do is it's going to assume that the data that I bring in from a data module, all of the tables are joined. But in this instance, I know that the weather data is not joined with the NFL data. Let's break that apart. Okay, good. So I've now broken that apart, and now I've separated the weather data in the map and in the list of dates. So that's still responsive, but I've left the NFL stuff that I brought in through my REST connection in place. Now, if I wanted to join those, maybe I join them on state or postal code. If I've got postal code available to me in the REST-based data, and at that point, I've got one-to-one, and now I've got something that I can filter on by date. So the stadium capacity for East Rutherford is 165,000. That's quite a bit. So let's see what it is. I think we've packed them in toward the end of the season. I think we had way more people than at 80,000 in there. So our ability to do good social distancing based on our custom map box map is not doing us any favors here, but fans will be who they are and plan to be anywhere near the end of the playoffs. Certainly, we're going to need to have some concessions and accommodations to utilize properties best. Okay, Maria, are there any questions that you're seeing pop in the chat?
There is a question. You may need to look at it. Just says, does the REST API allow us to traverse through JSON response hierarchy? And then they gave an example.
All right, let me take a look at that. REST API allows you to traverse through JSON. I don't know that it does. I think when the response is brought back, it's brought back in totality and highlighting parts of the response that would then align to parts of the object that response aligns to, whether it's a report or an object in the dashboard. I think it's all or nothing, from what I understand. Okay, well, I really appreciate you guys hanging with me through the first, well, I'll say 2.5. The Mapbox demo, the REST and weather demo, and then part of the mobile demo. Again, I apologize that didn't work. Always happens when you're on stage. But we'll capture that either in a video that I'll record and send it out to the group. We'll post it on the IBM community if we can. But we'll get that to you guys in short order, and then maybe do a follow-up demo at a subsequent user group. But I really appreciate all the participants. Thanks for hanging in there till the end of the day on Wednesday, Hump Day. Marie, I'll stop sharing.
Okay, thank you, Jason, for that. I didn't know it was all afternoon for you, so thank you so much for all that you put together. The demos were really good. So there are 4 polls we have. If you have time to stick around until 4, I'm gonna try this. I've never done this before. So I'm gonna launch the poll. If you can just submit your answers. Okay, I'll give it, oh, it's 3% voted. There we go. I see some votes coming in.
I see that one of the popular costumes this year is going to be a surprise.
Oh, I thought you were going to say, I mean, not dressing up this year is the majority.
Yeah, that's so far, yes.
So as you finish out voting there, I just want to thank everybody for coming. Thank PM Square and IBM for putting together the presentations. I will be sending out a survey after to all the participants, just to get your feedback on how this went and also to see what topics you're interested in for the next meeting. And I think that was all I wanted to share. The recording, when that's ready, I'll share that out as well, or PM Square might share it out as well, since they have the contact list from the registrations. Okay, so I'm going to end the polling. We had 75% response. It's pretty good. Now I don't know. Oh, share results. Let's see if I can figure out how to do this. Okay, so can you guys see the results? Jason, anyone?
Yeah.
Okay, so where are you joining us from? Majority is from the Midwest, 1 from Southwest and 1 from the Rockies. Which IBM tech do you use? BI is the big winner there. Looks like Watson and Planning and Predictive are, they're still behind by quite a bit, but 25% is pretty good. Impact of weather having on the business. Most people, it's a little, and the next one's quite a bit. So it'd be interesting to see kind of what sectors those are coming from. And then finally, and most importantly, what are you dressing up as for Halloween? Majority are not dressing up, and probably quite a few are not even going trick-or-treating. So, all right, thanks for sticking around. I will send out the survey and the recording, and then watch for an invitation for the next one coming out.